When your voice becomes your power, the healing journey of telling your truth. I recently had the privilege of interviewing Curtoyia Duncan, a force of nature whose work with trauma survivors has transformed not just individual lives, but entire communities. She's not just a practitioner, she's a revolutionary who understands that healing isn't a luxury, it's a birthright. What struck me most about our conversation wasn't just her professional brilliance, but how she embodies the very principles she teaches, that our stories carry immense power, that healing is possible no matter how deep the wounds, and that community can lift us when we cannot stand alone. Have you ever held a truth so heavy inside you that it physically hurt? A secret, a pain, a memory that felt like it might break you if you spoke it aloud? The weight of silence is something many of us know intimately. I want you to imagine something with me for a moment. Picture a pressure cooker, sealed tight, heat rising, steam building. What happens when there's no release valve? Eventually, something has to give. The container itself might crack, warp, or even explode. Our unspoken truths work the same way. They build and build until we either find a way to release them safely or they find their own way out, often in ways that harm us further. They become anxiety, depression, physical illness, strained relationships, self sabotage. This is especially true for Black women who have survived trauma. The pressure isn't just internal, it's compounded by a society that has historically told us to be strong, to keep going, to hold it together. Strong Black woman isn't just a compliment, it's often a prison sentence, a life sentence of carrying burdens without complaint, of putting everyone else first, of swallowing pain until it becomes part of who you are. As Curtoyia Duncan so eloquently shared during our interview, the first step toward healing isn't forgetting what happened to you. It's having the courage to acknowledge it happened at all. Such a simple statement, yet so profound in its truth. Acknowledgement is where healing begins. The statistics are staggering. According to the Institute for Women's Policy Research, more than 40% of Black women experience physical violence from an intimate partner during their lifetime. Yet they are less likely than women of other racial backgrounds to report these experiences or seek help. Why? The reasons are complex, layered with historical trauma, cultural expectations, and systemic barriers. But as Curtoya emphasized, silence doesn't protect us, it isolates us. It convinces us that our experience is singular, that no one would understand, that we are alone in our pain. I'm reminded of the Empowerment Project, a national initiative supporting Black women survivors of domestic violence. When they first began their work, many participants expressed fear of stigma or disbelief when disclosing abuse. Cultural expectations often discourage speaking out. What happens in this house stays in this house wasn't just a saying, it was an unwritten law in many communities. But something remarkable happened when these women were given safe spaces to share their experiences. The shame began to dissolve, the isolation cracked open, and healing, real, transformative healing, became possible. One woman, let's call her Janelle, had been silent about her abuse for 17 years. I thought if I didn't talk about it, it would eventually disappear, she told the group during her first session. But it never did. It just got heavier. When she finally spoke her truth, she described it as setting down a boulder I'd been carrying so long I forgot it wasn't part of my body. Over 5 years, more than 500 women shared their stories through the project. Their collective voices were so powerful that policy recommendations from the group were adopted at city levels in two states. Individual pain became collective power. Private suffering transformed into public change. This is what happens when we dare to speak our truths. Not only do we begin to heal ourselves, but we create pathways for others to follow. We turn on lights in dark rooms so others can find their way out too. But let's be honest, speaking your truth, especially about trauma, isn't like flipping a switch. It's terrifying, it's vulnerable, it requires tremendous courage. It means facing not just what happened to you, but all the emotions you've been suppressing to survive. I remember Curtoyia sharing how many of the women she works with describe the moment before first telling their story as feeling like standing on the edge of a cliff. Will anyone believe me? Will they blame me? Will speaking this aloud make it more real or less bearable? These fears are valid. And yet, as Curtoya so powerfully articulated, the thing about truth is that it demands to be heard. You can postpone it, but you cannot silence it forever. At some point, it will find its way out, either with your permission or without it. The journey toward healing isn't linear, it's messy and complicated, and sometimes feels like taking two steps forward and three steps back. But it begins with acknowledgement, with giving voice to what happened. Consider the work of Sista Afia Community Mental Wellness in Chicago. They provide affordable mental wellness care tailored specifically for Black women through group therapy sessions focused on trauma recovery. When they first began, they faced significant challenges. Stigma around mental health care within many Black communities led some women to avoid seeking traditional therapy or admitting vulnerability. The solution wasn't to force these women into conventional treatment models. Instead, they created culturally relevant group sessions where participants could speak openly about personal pain in supportive circles led by peers who'd been there. One participant described her experience. For years, I went to therapists who didn't understand me, didn't understand my community or my experiences. I felt like I was speaking a language they couldn't translate. But here, I don't have to explain the context. Everyone already knows. We can get straight to the healing. The results? A dramatic increase in engagement compared to individual therapy alone. Members reported feeling seen for the first time without judgment. More than 1,000 Chicago area residents have participated since the program launched, and the model is now being replicated nationally. This is the power of community and healing. When we share our stories with others who understand, who have walked similar paths, something shifts. The burden becomes lighter, not because the trauma is any less significant, but because we're no longer carrying it alone. As Curtoyia Duncan emphasized in our conversation, healing happens in community. We were never meant to process pain in isolation. That's not how humans are designed. We need reflection, validation, witness. But what about when the trauma feels too big, too shameful to speak aloud? What about sexual violence, a reality that affects far too many women, especially women of color? This is where the story of Tarana Burke and the birth of the Me Too movement becomes so relevant. Long before it became a viral hashtag, Me Too was a grassroots movement founded by Burke to support young girls of color surviving sexual abuse. Early efforts faced resistance due to entrenched taboos around discussing sexual violence within marginalized communities. There is also a lack of mainstream media attention until celebrity involvement years later brought visibility, though this risked erasing its original focus on people like Burke herself, a working class woman survivor raising awareness one conversation at a time. Burke built networks offering mentorship programs where girls could safely disclose what happened without fear or shame. She used storytelling workshops so survivors saw themselves reflected back positively rather than defined solely by victimhood. The spark began with one on one conversations between Burke and girls she mentored at summer camp, whose pain mirrored her own childhood experience. She named it Me Too, so no survivor would ever feel alone again when looking into another woman's eyes. From local workshops serving dozens annually, it grew into an international movement cited before Congress and the UN. Millions worldwide have since used Me Too language. New laws have expanded workplace protections against harassment and assault. Countless individuals credit the movement with giving them permission and language to finally tell their truths. This is what happens when one person has the courage to speak first. It creates a ripple effect that can literally change the world. During my interview with Curtoyia Duncan, she shared something that has stayed with me. Your story isn't just for you, it's for everyone who will recognize themselves in your words and realize they aren't alone. This is perhaps the most powerful aspect of truth telling. When we speak our experiences aloud, we create connection. We build bridges between our pain and others. We transform isolation into community. But let's be clear, telling your story isn't just about helping others, it's about reclaiming your own power. When trauma happens, especially interpersonal violence, it robs us of agency, it silences us, it makes us feel powerless. Speaking about what happened is an act of reclamation. It says this happened to me, but it does not define me. I am still here. I still have a voice. As Curtoya emphasized, healing isn't about erasing the scars, it's about wearing them with the knowledge that they tell a story of survival. So I stand before you today with a challenge to break the silence that has kept you small, that has kept you isolated, that has kept you from your own healing. Your voice is not just sound, it is power, it is medicine, it is revolution. When you speak your truth, whether to one trusted person or to the world, you are not just unburdening yourself, you are creating ripples that reach shores you cannot see. You are lighting candles in windows for others lost in the same darkness you've known. I challenge you to take one step towards your own voice today. Write one page in a journal no one will read. Tell one trusted friend about something you've been carrying alone. Join one support group where others will understand without explanation. Because the world needs your voice. The world needs your story. The world needs the wisdom that only comes from walking through fire and emerging on the other side. Scarred, yes, but stronger. As Curtoya Duncan reminds us, when you find your voice after trauma has tried to silence you, that's not just healing, that's revolution. And revolutions, my friends, begin with a single voice saying what has long been unspeakable. Your revolution is waiting. Your healing is possible. Your voice is your power. Speak,